Yeah. You know, let it sit until we're done. That way it disperses in the toilet water. Easier to flush.
With my kid up in the garage making some kind of woodworking project. My table saw went out. I swore a lot in front of my 8-year-old. Wasn't proud of that moment. But jumped on Craigslist, got myself a bitchin' table saw.
Did you say that in front of your kid too?
Shit. It only weighed like 700 pounds. So that turned out to be a pretty good thing. So, I don't know. Works good.
That's good.
Hanging out in a comic book shop after hours where the fun begins.
You know, this is where all the parties happen.
Continuous.
Yeah, right? What about you, Kelsey? What you been up to this week?
Same old work, dance, TV. Season 3 of Glow.
Oh, I know. So
we're not even, sponsored by them, but they're so good. I'll talk about it.
That first episode, Challenger.
Just finished Orange is the New Black, the 7th season.
The final season. Every time I get ready to watch that, something else comes on. Like comes out like Woo Assassins. I just started that. That's fun.
Pretty good.
Oh yeah, it's pretty chill.
Okay.
You like Kung Fu?
I do.
Kung Fu, Avatar: Last Airbender. There's always elemental stuff.
Okay.
Action. It's legit.
All right. I don't watch any of that, but I'm catching up on Boston Legal.
Okay. you getting into the West Wing too, just to
I'm going to bring it in though. Look out for the angle. You ready? William Shatner. Renee Auberjonois. You know him. the Clay guy from Deep Space Nine, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. We got all kinds of folks on this. We got David. We got James Spader.
James Spader's always good.
Ultron.
Well, let's get into it, guys. Welcome to Escaping, the best podcast in Colorado Springs.
Yes, indeed.
We are recording at Escape Velocity Comics. It's actually downtown over off Bijou Street. Just for our asses, just know that even though we are recording here, our views and our opinions, are not reflective necessarily on the building or the people surrounding or the owner or the company or anyone but ourselves. We're just a bunch of loud assholes.
Yes.
But we have opinions, and we want them to be heard. On today's episode, we are jumping back in. It is the Powers of 10 episode, Waking Nightmare. Today, we've got, as always, to my right, Gio. He's our silent watcher.
Hello.
And across from me, we've got Kelsey.
Yes, sir. Yours truly.
And who's that guy over there?
This is TJ. How you doing? Long-time fan, long-time listener, first-time guest appearance.
He's been listening since the start, and those letters, they keep coming in, and he's just like, please, can I come on? And I'm like, maybe. You're probably going to see a lot of him around here from the time being going forward, because he knows his stuff, and if this proves to be successful, we may have him back. If it doesn't, you'll never hear from him again.
Turn this little tree into a fantastic foursome.
Wow. So if you like me, go ahead and dial 1-800-GOT-XMEN.
If you'd like to see Jason Todd be killed, dial 1-800. The right Robin died. All right, so let's jump in. Powers of 10. This is the follow-up to House of X in spirit and in actuality. It's not the second in the House of X series, but in a way it really is.
I think it openly says that. As a matter of fact, 2 stories that are one, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Which is pretty creative. Begs the question why you have 2 series.
Because you're Jonathan Hickman, and 1 is not enough. When they give you a limited number, you go, cool, I'm going to do 2 of those, and I'm going to make it count.
Yeah, I can give you
Exactly.
That's right.
Instead of stretching out for a whole year, let me just double it up. Why have one patty week have a double cheeseburger?
Exactly. we saw the same thing happen with Avengers and New Avengers leading up to Infinity and after that Secret Wars.
Yes.
The story was so big that Hickman said, all right, I'm plugging another one, and you guys want my shit, right?
Yeah. And he did the same thing with Fantastic Four and the Future Foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I'm just wondering, because I don't think you could just strictly read House of X and get the story.
Oh.
You might be able to. We'll see when we get there. But.
Right, but there's so many details and nuances that tie in that, like it says, it changes everything you just read in the previous issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, TJ, what's your history with the X-Men?
All right, so I started collecting X-Men back when I was in middle school, and boy, I don't know. So I was a middle school kid, not much money, but would collect my daily whole file for a while. Then I let's see, in 1997, I took a 20-year break to go and join the Army, and then came back to it.
Okay.
But each time, love the X-Men. Personally, of course, actually more than any other group for one reason. You didn't ask, but here it is. You ready?
I'm ready.
Lay it on us.
And my reason is X-Men and mutants in general. Any one of us could be one of them. You just don't know.
He says it, and his eye twitched. I don't know if you caught that, but his eye twitched as he said it. And
Well,
I mean, maybe persuasion is his power. That's why he got on the show.
there it is. I don't know, but
Every reality must have one.
with other teams like the Avengers, I don't think I'm actually going to be Captain America.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a process they had to go through. It's not
That's a big shield to
Right.
carry.
Exactly. You could probably break into Chris Evans' house, though. I mean,
more than likely. I can't be Thor. I haven't been around for 5,000 years.
we don't know that. We can't know that.
You don't know.
Exactly.
No, so that's why I love them. I grew up with them. I think they helped everybody here probably. You're a
Right.
weirdo as a
Yes.
kid and you don't really fit in all that well.
Yes.
I could be different, but I could also be important.
Yes.
Right. That's actually a really good way of looking at it. Kelsey and I, we've got a pretty big history in the X-Men as well. Something we talked about last episode. What drew us to them? What was our grounds for getting into this comic particularly? A lot of folks, they either go DC or Marvel in their camps, but I grew up Marvel, and X-Men was always just one of my favorites. But let's get into the issue today. This is Powers of 10 #1 by Jonathan Hickman again, and wow, guys, what a crazy issue.
Yes.
Let's start with that first page. Those are 4 different characters, 2 of whom are the same, and a 4th who might possibly be the same as well.
Okay, so we can start right away by saying that it's a logarithmic scale, right?
Yes.
It's x1, x10, x100, x1000, right?
Yes.
Which
X-23, Weapon X, X
right,
Factor.
we haven't seen how that fits in yet.
No, not at all.
That would be about what, a centimeter and a half down that page.
Oh,
No,
yeah. Yeah, it's in the whites in between.
It's
Because
in
it's
the
so
margin.
much.
Potentially white hot room? No, not at all.
See, now you brought the Phoenix to it. I don't even want to start thinking about that.
That's probably the answer.
Yeah.
It's a Phoenix. That's it.
Choose more to.
But there's symmetry
Yes.
in the art. Obviously, I think you're supposed to look at that. You're supposed to go,
Right.
oh, that's Charles Xavier. That must obviously be Charles Xavier.
Right. That's
like,
Nimrod.
I think. Or is it Charles Xavier?
Exactly.
And then the last guy, well, that's obviously
That's
Charles
totally
Xavier.
Blue
Yeah,
Charles
so Blue
Xavier.
Charles, like-
He went and saw all those Avatar sequels that James Cameron put out, and he just loved them so damn much.
The same way, like, Gotham City always needs a Batman, the Justice League always need a Batman,
Right.
the Mutant World always needs a Professor X. So somehow, some way, shape, or form, this has to be, there always being that, maybe not necessarily the same Charles, but a Charles
A. Charles,
in some
right.
capacity in this world, whether it's man or machine.
Some kind of custodian or
Absolutely.
Yes.
the
Well-
mutant legacy or the. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Or the X. Like
The X. There's always
What's
the
that?
X. Now, something we touched in a little bit last episode is that Charles could potentially be an immortal because he can transfer his consciousness into other beings.
That was my eye roll.
Yeah.
Everybody in the Marvel
We
universe
heard
is
it.
immortal.
Yeah. And also, after
Except
watching,
for apparently Metal from the Young Avengers, because he died in Avengers Academy and he never came
Yes,
back.
That's true too. But also, like watching a lot of Black Mirror and seeing just how the human brain can be mapped and put into technology. He
Right.
has a cerebral helmet. We have Nimrod. It's not that far out of the realm that he is downloading his consciousness into different things, or somebody's doing
Absolutely.
it for him.
Gio, do you think you can take a look at the Krakoa language and see if on the side of the blue guy, does that say anything?
You know what? I never even thought about that.
That's something to look into. So while Gio's doing that, we've got the first one, Charles Xavier, and that is X-Men Year 10, or Year 1. That is the Dream. In the second one, it's what we appear to know as the Man Called X, and that is Year 10. That is the World. Then we've got Nimrod in Year 100. That is the War. And then we've got an unknown character, the blue guy, who might just be Charles Xavier. That is Year 1000, Ascension. So this might all be a long game plan to get them to that ascension point, even though the Man Called X in the last issue, it seems like his plan is kicking off and, probably going to be fulfilled in a short period of time. But I don't know.
Well, so can we address, like, I think from the previous issue, I can't really say the previous issue, anyway, but
It's all connected.
House of X, it's sort of implied that all of X history so far is in the first 10 years,
Right,
Yes.
right.
which I don't think it necessarily has to be. I think that It's a logarithmic scale.
You don't remember when the 60s and the 80s happened in the same decade?
Marvel time.
Yeah, about the same hour and a half.
That's right. Yeah.
Bro, this is almost worse than Dragon Ball Z time.
Weirdest Thanksgiving ever. I'll tell you that right now.
Thunderbird was not
So
happy.
I don't know. Yeah,
Not because he's dead,
but because of the appropriation, of course. So we've got those going forward. We've got year one. We've got a young Charles Xavier. He's happy. He's full of life. He's got a spring in his step, and he's found his place in the dream world that he wants.
Hopes and dreams.
Oh yeah, and manipulation. Those are his best laid plans.
and this is like right after he announces to the world that he's a mutant.
Exactly.
So he has that air of freedom to him too. Like,
Right, and they go into that more in House of X #2, which we'll probably talk about a little bit at the end, seeing as how that is out, and it wasn't necessarily going to be covered in this episode, but there's just so much there, folks.
there it is.
Things leading right to it. Hard to not talk
Once you
about
think you
where
gotta
that goes.
figure out.
So we've got some very simple things happening in the first year one. Charles is at a fair, he's having a good time, and he runs into Moira McTaggart.
Is
Yeah.
that abundantly obvious to everybody?
No, because she has a Kitty Pryde look about her.
Yeah, I didn't know who it was.
You know,
Well, and I'll tell you who it looked like to me to begin with. It looked like you, Daniel.
I've been told that when men fall in love, my face is the first and last thing they see. So
I don't think I want to go to sleep tonight.
don't worry, your time is coming.
So after, of course, studying and perusing every issue and every curve and shade of color,
Because you have to with these.
Yes.
if you recall the character Silabelle, the first one, she looks discernibly similar to Moira McTaggart.
That's interesting. I never caught that. And I went over today just most of the day going over this one issue again just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Like this little midget guy. Midget is not the right term. This little person right here at the fair, he's got red hair. Is he,
Dun dun doodle.
How come this little girl only has one balloon?
right. What does it signify?
What's the symbolism?
I think it's the mutant paradox.
So, he's there. He runs into Moira. And she's like, you seem happy. And he's like, oh yeah, I just had a dream of the world and my place in it. And what's crazy is her response.
It's not a dream if it's real.
Yeah, and she calls him by name. So that throws him off because he's a telepath. He's used to knowing everything, being the smartest guy in the room, and at this point he is caught unawares. So, what does he do?
He reads her mind.
He reads her mind.
With her consent, of course.
Yeah. Which, with Charles Xavier, that's something he doesn't always do. Sometimes he just
doesn't.
probes.
Yeah, like, I'm going to shut this down.
Well, you say he's all full of hopes and dreams, right?
Exactly.
And so presumably if somebody walked up and said, hey, about that dream, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? He'd be like, yeah, so I was just saying about it. But instead she goes, yeah, what if it's real? And he goes, who the hell are you?
Exactly.
What the hell are you doing here? And so he challenges.
She says, look in my mind, Charles. And he does. And we're left there with his face of just, oh.
Well, and that's that iconic.
Right. And apparently this is the most important page and moment in X-Men history. One of the things right before that happens is Moira's telling him about the fair and the fortune teller, and we see 3 distinct images. One that looks like the Red Priest, who we were not given a name to just yet. Another one given to Rasputin, and then the tower, that's Nimrod's tower later on in the issue.
Everyone's got assumptions about those right away.
Right, of course you have to. And, she describes him, and it seems like, oh yeah, the fortune teller, he has crazy cards. Why wouldn't he, But this is something more than that. So from there, we jump forward 10 years to the world.
Well, I mean, first, we take a look at those images. One of them is called Rasputin.
Yeah.
Anybody who's read anything like Days of Future Past or extended versions and whatnot, I immediately thought that it was Kitty and Peter's daughter.
Right.
But one of them are definitely related to them through the blood.
She's even phasing in the card, which is crazy.
But she's got a couple extra features that are at least curious or worrisome.
Right.
But the point is, it looks like she's obviously a mix after that. So
yeah,
but Rasputin still
exactly. That has to be their kid. But Jonathan Hickman, he leads us to water and then tells us it wasn't water at all.
Nope. And of course the devil.
Right.
Obviously Nightcrawler.
Exactly.
Nightcrawler related is red, just like Azazel, his father.
Right. So he's throwing all these images at us, and we're supposed to just assume we know what it is. Yes. We don't. So let's jump forward to year 10. That's the world. That's where House of X was #1 was taking place. We see Mystique and Toad arrive. And one of the crazy things there is she tells Toad to go play. Like, they belong there. Like, they've been there, you know?
Yeah.
Make sure you take your shoes off first.
You don't know where that tongue has been. But
There are children in the panel.
children on this podcast. But we're talking about, how much time the entire X universe takes place in.
Right.
X10 is not, if it's logarithmic, is not 10 years later.
Sure, I guess it's just
10
year 10.
times later.
That makes
So,
sense. Okay.
Now, I don't know exactly what that means in math, because that means we need to define what X1 is.
Exactly. Who decided this is the time? This is the point when time starts.
Well, Jonathan Hickman did.
Yeah.
That's how it
Yeah.
goes. That's going to be the answer to a lot
Or the
of
one.
Yeah.
Hitman did it.
So Mystique tells Toad to go play. She shows up. She meets up with Magneto and Charles Xavier. And what happens there, Kels?
She gives the drive to Magneto, then yeah.
Right? Yeah. She gives him, but before she does, she says, I need more. Like, we lost Sabretooth.
Yes.
She was against him killing the guards, which is totally opposite of Mystique.
Yes.
Unless there's a limited number of mutants.
Ooh.
Sorry, I brought that in. Sorry.
Yeah, no, bring it. See, when you whisper shit like that, our 4 fans out there get a little crazy. So she says, I have this, but I'm going to need more. Sabretooth was caught, which was the altercation we saw in House of X #1. Now, Magneto, he tells her he's been infected with this idea of hope. He believes in it. He's like, am I a fool to believe it,
That word is a good choice. Infected.
Exactly. We see the
Who put
plants
that-
all
yes,
over.
Who put that thought inside his head?
It's not like he's surrounded by a bunch of telepaths who have found ways around his helmet before.
Exactly. And which he's not wearing in this current panel at all. Like, he might have forgot to put it on.
Or Krakoa couldn't grow them.
Hey, Eric, you look really good today. Your hair, is that a new product? It's pretty good.
It's called Hope.
Oh, yeah. You know what? You wouldn't want to muss that up with your helmet, now would you? Now, would you, Eric?
You're right.
Can we draw any sort of parallels to the other times that Magneto thought that the X Dream would work?
There are plenty of times, even when we've hit the redemption point with him, where he comes back and Charles is gone, or there's another faction of the X-Men who are running around.
Charles had to go into space.
Right, he's
watch the kids.
dead.
But what uniform was Magneto wearing?
That's the post-schism revolutionary with Cyclops all
That's
white.
right. When he was, it was the Uncanny X-Men run.
Yes.
And I want to say Bendis was the writer, but I know that.
That definitely was Bendis'
it was
era when
Bendis and Bacala.
Yeah, when they were when they was running out of the Weaponettes facility.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which we kind of touched on before, how Wolverine started the Jean Grey School, kind of as a slap in the face to Scott, and then Scott's like, "Well, watch this, you animal." And
go to one place you're never gonna go.
So he believes he's right. Anytime he's dressed like this, he believes he is. He's right there at the front lines, fighting for mutant rights in the best way he can. Maybe not by killing people, but in a new way.
Yes, and just like the time he joined, not Sabretooth, but Cyclops on the first Utopia, was due to him seeing like the way Cyclops was moving and acting was an embarrassment of mutant kind.
Right.
That he needed to sit back and let Cyclops do his thing after he brought back Kitty Pryde from space in the giant bullet to show that, I'm here to listen, I'm not here to rule.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow suit.
Okay, but if I just say the word hope, all right, everyone's generally got a positive connotation, right?
Yeah, Cable's daughter.
Hope is,
That's
right. It's kind of hot.
Even though she shot Cyclops.
She is a teenager there, TJ. This is a family show.
Oh, he's talking about the Phoenix Force.
Yeah, but so hope is good. Let's have hope, right? That's not exactly what Magneto's talking about.
No.
He's talking about hope for mutants. Which
Yes.
I'm a fan,
Mm-hmm.
but I also happen to be human, as far as you know. And
His eye keeps twitching, and I just don't know how we stop that.
and so I've been infected with hope. So it's not exactly the generally agreed upon positive image.
Like the
of
A
hope.
definition of hope.
I like that. Instead, I'm infected with hope for us.
Well, even in House of X #1, at the end, we see him. We're the new gods, and they're like, you know what you sound like. Of course he does, but he's been wanting to assume that role for a long time.
So he's almost always been in this passionate, almost fascist role.
Mm-hmm.
He's the leader, not exactly in this case, but in this particular exchange with Mystique, he is. And I have hope for us. Or, my dream will finally be achieved. That's the voice I was going to use, by the way. So I know we're
Nothing more, Austrian since he's from there. Like, the future is bright. No, not your favorite Magneto.
Nah.
Especially for him, that wouldn't be the right voice for.
You
Magneto.
become the thing you hate.
Which we see time and time again.
But so Mystique snatches the drive back.
Exactly.
Actually, just doesn't give it to him, right? Snatches away from him, and then.
Well, at that point, she says she needs more, and Charles says to her, "Is helping your fellow mutant not reward enough for Raven Darkholm?" No.
Apparently
No, it's not. She has
mean,
betrayed
let me
her people time and time again.
Right.
So he's like, well, that's fair. We need more from you. Because, of course, with these kinds of agreements, it's never cut and dry. It's never, this is my, one more and I'm out and I'm retiring. There's always another job. It's national treasure. There's always another clue.
Exactly.
And so we already know at this point that the three gifts to humanity are already out there. Or at least they're already developed.
Of course.
So that's not what's on the drive.
No.
The drive is stolen from Damage Control.
Exactly.
Who's got all kinds of history, but we see in what is it, House of X, right? They're building the
Space
asteroid M, right? Well, it's what is it?
Orcus.
Orcus is up there, and it looks like they've got a maker's mold head.
I think we're going to be past Maker. we're at the wrong book.
You bring in your opinions to these podcasts. You bring on a guest, and everyone just shits on you.
Yeah, I think you can speak your mind. But I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what exactly was going on?
Since when does Charles Xavier have
He
telekinesis?
never did,
And
which
that's
is...
a common misconception I see so many times, especially with one meme that's forever floating around. If Charles can move things with his mind, why can't he move his legs? He can't move things with his mind. He read minds.
Or,
It's two different things.
or he's lazy and being funded by the government, so why would he get off of his fat bald ass and move around when someone can push that gold-plated wheelchair around?
We can finally talk about the issues here.
Yeah,
But-
So Charles says, he's like, well, we need more from you. And she hits him right back with, is helping your fellow mutant not reward enough for the great Charles Xavier? What does he respond with?
Like, no.
Everyone owes something.
Exactly.
For this new world to happen, everyone owes something.
So I just want to make a note of these two panels here, okay, where he's using telekinesis.
Unless Magneto's doing it for him.
Or that.
Why wouldn't Magneto do that instead of just taking it from his own?
He's always trying to show off his powers. It's like,
Because of magnetism.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Can you hand me the remote?
Or is Krakoa doing it?
Damn, we don't know the full length of Krakoa's powers just yet. So, or the man called X. Again, he has taken over Phantom X's body.
Yes.
There were powers in that body that we don't know the full capability of.
That's true too.
That was during the Astonishing X-Men run, of course. Yeah.
Tracking, but that. Okay, didn't track telekinesis. We'll come back to it.
Yeah, we'll come back to it. So from there, we jump forward to year 100. And from there, we start off with a mutant dying. Now this guy looks like Elixir to me.
It does.
But these are new mutants. This is year 100. These are not the same mutants, which we'll see later that Mr. Sinister worked with the X-Men to breed these mutants. Now, does that sound familiar at all from the beginning of House of X?
Sounds like virtually
Yes.
every Days of Future Past problem.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
You start with, perfecting the mutants, and then you turn to hounds. Now, hounds are a constant in the mutants' future.
They go around.
They turn them against each other, and it's almost like they're a big part of why these utopias and paradises don't seem to work out.
Fight mutants with mutants.
Yeah. Oh no, you were laughing. What you got there?
The mutants are the reason all these mutant things don't work out. Like, okay.
If it wasn't raining, we wouldn't be wet out here in the rain.
That's
Work for
true.
all these damn comic books, so we wouldn't have to turn these pages.
I know, we're not there yet, with our abilities. I speak for everyone but you. Again, the twitchy eye is giving you away.
It's funny. I don't know.
So, this mutant is dying, and he recites, "There was a dream. Our dreams are the same. While you slept, the world changed."
So is that now I'm thinking about it, is that programming as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Like they all have the same dream, so they all live for the same hope. So that would keep them going.
Right.
Unless it's like some type of holy scripture that they all recite to each other. Kind of like when we get to the devil. I don't know if I'm going to spoil the name.
Oh, no, just go for it.
All right, like Cardinal, he believes in like the sanctity and things of that nature, very religious in tone. So maybe that's something they read to each other, give each other hope to keep the dream alive.
That makes sense. And they even say it's a it's
Almost
a
like
mnemonic trigger when they start to flatline.
So I was going to say it's both. So it is programming. That particular statement at that time is programming, but it really is part of like the Ten Commandments.
Yes,
Right.
And it just
Their
happens.
own
Thou shalt,
religion, their own language.
thou shalt not hoard any goats, for they are smelly. That's the unknown commandment.
But you might study the Bible, the key phrase could be theologians.
Okay, yeah.
And that's what's going to wipe your mind. And
Something that started beautiful and then was corrupted or twisted in a way as it kept going on. It becomes, zealous in the people.
it's probably just not something you're going to hear every day, so it's not going to wipe your mind as you're going to 7-Eleven.
Exactly.
Man, I had this dream last night, and I think we're all dreaming the same dream, man. And while I was sleeping, the world changed. Oh.
But I think the point, though, is if they're constantly reading the scriptures according to Charles all the time, the point is the scriptures according to Charles exist.
Exactly.
And so there's a cult, they probably call themselves X-Men or a Scanny Sun or something like that. That keep the dream alive even in this.
And whether they're X-Men, X-Force, Juggalos, whatever we've got here, these guys, they're being hunted again. Even though we've seen this beautiful start, this is where the dream comes crashing down again. Robots and humans. It's the mutant or the man-machine war on mutants.
It's true.
And
it's happening.
We
Matrix, man. It might just be the Matrix.
Right? You think the Matrix was a bunch of mutants in the Matrix, and the rest was man-machine keeping them in their place?
Yes. So just like in the Matrix, the robots keep the mutants alive so they can use their various abilities to keep the robots advancing.
You get one good Cypher or Douglock in there, and that runs it.
I think we got one, or 7/8 the one, or something like that.
Yeah.
Did you see this face here?
Mm-hmm.
And so for the podcast, the audio format here, I'm pointing at something.
It's very effective.
But, so there at the top of the page, that's one of the hunters, right?
Yes.
Doesn't that look like an original Hellfire clone?
I was going to say, that's a Hellfire mask if I ever saw one.
Yes.
I
But
don't think it's meant that way, though.
we don't know. Hickman doesn't get rid of history when he starts his new books. He dives into it and says, that obscure thing?
Yeah, everything has a reference point.
It's all
has to have an
connected.
origin somewhere.
Yeah. So they're being hunted again, and Silobel is one of the mutants who's surrounded. She is stated as a black brain telepath, a natural Judas to the other Hounds and Nimrod. So these are the kind that, when they were bred in the Salken kennels, they were born with a deficiency. And the black brain almost makes me think of the black cocoa seed, the nowhere seed. It's where something else is happening that you can't really contain or regulate. And they turn to mutant kind over their masters.
So I got to just put a pin in
Jump in, man.
Here, all right, and that is that whoever the telepaths are that are supposed to be reading the minds cannot read or see the black brains.
Exactly.
Just like in the area of Krakoa that's blacked out as well.
They're tumors.
And just like, we'll come back to it at the end.
No, get into it. We'll jump back.
No, just like in...
Oh, he's pointing at the thing we might talk about. Okay, cool. So, this was another intel mission as Silobel is being interrogated by these sentinels who are just terrifying, and these potentially, they look like Hellfire, goons. So, she says she came alone, which is not true. We see her friends watching from the rubble. Those friends are Rasputin and Cardinal.
Yes.
Now, we're not meant to know anything about these two just quite yet.
Is his name Cardinal, or does she just keep referring to him as Cardinal?
Well, Priest and Cardinal. Let's call him Jeff.
Jeff?
Okay.
So Rasputin and Jeff are there just, watching as their friend is being tortured.
Yes.
What's going on there, TJ?
Okay, so the friend is being tortured trying to be red, right? And we know that's not going to
And Cardinal is red.
Play on words.
Someone email Jonathan Hickman.
It's all connected. It's all connected. No, so she's being read and she's being tortured. Even though she can't be read, it's painful nonetheless. And so we got Cardinal and Rasputin off to the side.
Right.
And so there's the tension between them. Cardinal, for reasons I think we find out here shortly, is predisposed to not being violent. So not exactly a pacifist. He's
Bred
involved,
that way.
But yeah, so genetically predisposed, right? But of course Rasputin, who is a mix of all kinds of folks. And just before we get to the answer at the end, anybody want to take a guess who she's a mix of?
I mean, I know because again, I spent all day going over it, but I could do it as if I didn't know.
Okay.
Off the top, Colossus.
Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. Right?
And definitely Peter Petrelli with all those powers going on at once, but we're talking season 1 Peter Petrelli.
Oh, yeah.
Like
The
none
best
of,
Petrelli.
none of this Heroes Reborn bullshit where he's
man.
dead.
That's excellent.
That's a whole nother
So,
podcast.
Colossus with the metal arm. Right?
Magic.
They got, you say magic, and we said Colossus, but if we got a soul sword, then we got soul armor.
Exactly.
So there's that. You notice the ponytails, by the way?
The ponytails look like Danny Moonstone.
Because-
Moonstar?
Because anybody with those ponytails is obviously Native American. That's just true. You can write that down.
My people actually, growing up with my Native American background as well, we had none of those. So
See, you're obviously wrong.
white men come, say cut off ponytail, ponytail go,
The
buffalo
point-
die.
So the point is, Cardinal wants to continue the mission, go home because we're done. She's already caught. We're terribly sorry.
Exactly. So Rasputin's saying, "I'm going in, and will you pray for me, priest?"
Because
And he goes, "I'll
damn.
pray for, I pray for every living soul."
Yes. The good, the bad.
But what is he missing there? What does she point out? That machines don't have,
Like,
and
they're not
humans
alive.
lost their soul
a long time ago.
long time
When they
ago.
sided with the machines.
Absolutely, they were given gifts, and damn, even like the Native Americans we've seen,
suppose so.
yeah, we're gonna bring it all together, given gifts, and then they're like, no,
the red man. We're going to say that. That's right. Edit that out.
no, that's staying in. Now, folks, I just want to stop right here and say, just because someone might be a mutant in your midst on your podcast does not mean that they are, not going to say some racial shit.
And certainly not me. But anyway.
He called us flat scans when he came in, which was just rude.
Probably meant nothing.
Gene jokes.
Gene jokes, of course, being a throwback to any superior mutant who hates humans and anyone who's not a mutant.
That's Genosha, though. Gene jokes. Right? That's in the way back issue.
So,
Rasputin charges in.
yes.
I'll be, everything be damned. What's unfulfilling to me is I guess the exchange. Cardinal just doesn't seem to have a role.
Right, but he also says later on he can't. He's physically unable to because of his breeding.
Then
Yes.
why the hell is he there? I know why.
You know why he's there.
But it just seems
Because he
odd.
looks cool.
Right, it's like
And
when...
to throw us off.
Well, and it's like when your D&D party goes in and the bard is there for some reason, and it's, they can't do much, but then here comes morale. And you know what? Thangor? Yeah, this is a great song about how you slayed all those men. Sure, their wives and kids are, lost without them, but they're dead, and we can go in and get our treasure. This is a song about you.
Now play the flute.
He starts playing Don't Stop Believin', and it's fantastic. So, Silabelle is captured again instead of just surrounded, and what we learn about her in those moments are she didn't have a name when they found her. She was a hound. That is one loud-ass car behind me. You can almost hear how big his dick is.
So the soul sword.
The soul sword.
Assuming it's a soul sword, right?
Yes, assumptions.
Isn't
of
it
course.
only supposed to cut through evil?
Well, it's
It gets tricky.
It's tricky.
Which writer are you talking about?
yes, because I think
That's the only thing I counted on in my life.
because I think it has something to do with the actual. Sometimes it's a blade itself, and that being affected by her mutant abilities,
Right.
also causes harm to physical objects as well.
Well, of course, and we've seen it be able to shut people down, kind of like Betsy Braddock's
Yes.
Psychic.
with the totality of her psychic ability.
Exactly.
Without harm, though.
So Silabelle
Yeah.
was a hound for the Salkel kennels, and she was nameless. She had blood on her hands. The X-Men still took her in, which is another thing we always see with the X-Men is redemption, forgiveness, being able to turn your life around. Gambit and Rogue, Sabretooth.
There's a Wolverine.
Toad for a while was even, the janitor at the Jean Grey School until...
Warpath, he used to be a Hellion.
Absolutely. So... This
50% of all X-Men were villains first.
absolutely, and this totally jives with what we've seen with the X-Men. One quick note I just want to throw in there. We see a little later on, Sinister, they talk about later, there's no redemption for that man. He's the devil himself.
More or less, yes.
Or he could be on a podcast tonight. But,
Yes. He is a shapeshifter.
well, but how many times has Sinister died
Well,
I would say
this year?
once.
Sinister is,
I think
but
he ever die after his first death. I think everything since then, I'm not gonna count because they're a clone.
exactly, which we found out in Rosenberg's X-Men, the one that was working with them was just another shell,
Just like a Utopia, we had a whole island of Sinisters,
which was insane. They were like they were having homes, they were fucking each other,
Yes.
they were buying bread from each other. Once you have all of you in a society and it's all clones of you, how many days do you think before you start making out with yourself? I'm gonna say the same day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're like, let's try this out. Now, okay, this is an important question, and I really want you guys to think about it. Are you a good kisser, or if you're making out with yourself, do you just think that you're a good kisser? Like, there's no bias there.
I think that if you're the only one around, by definition, you're the best.
Yes.
Whoa.
And the worst.
Unless one of those clones comes out and he's like really good at it, and you're
You gotta
like,
figure out who you've been kissing.
I ain't never been kissed like this before. And then I look at myself and go, I know.
And you're like, I think I'm a clone now.
So
Only seems to be me around.
Silo Bell tells Rasputin, this mission is all for nothing if we get caught. I can get caught, but not all of us can get caught. Someone needs to make it back with the intel. Another intel mission. There's always someone looking for how do they survive.
Do you think that Silobel at this point has any idea that do you think that Silobel at any point thinks that she can survive this?
Of course. She was a hound. She was created to withstand these things. I believe in her mind, she fully believes that she can survive this.
Because she's programmed to believe.
Exactly.
So she's, yeah.
Okay.
So these mutants were bred for one purpose or another. The Red Priest finally plants the black seed to the No Place, which is the tumor that we were just talking about in Krakoa.
So here we are, a factor of 10 later,
Jeez.
and now we're using black seeds.
And now we're using black seeds for
I
whatever.
didn't mean to be racist.
That's
The
cool.
fact that you look Kelsey in the eyes unblinking while you said it, that was a bit much.
It's not racist, it's a fact.
You know, no.
It is.
So, you know, it's one of those things where across the table for me, we have Ebony and Ivory, and over here, Gio and I are sitting, and we're both similar caramel.
Caramel and peanut butter.
Didn't see that coming.
Like caramel and peanut butter.
It's a good conversation.
Sorry, that fucking sunk me. That was good. So they overwhelm and capture Silo Bell, who pleads with Rasputin to leave, and the look on her face is just devastating. She's like, please just go. Now imagine finding a home, a place that accepts you, a place that takes you in because you're one of them, and then being, snatched away by the same people who were using you. That's fucking devastating.
Yes.
So, little side note in these books, Jonathan Hickman takes time each issue to go through and give us a whole list of what's going on. It's like paragraph on paragraph on paragraph. Here we see where Rasputin's 5 genes come from. There were a few different Chimera classes. It started with Fodder, who they were bred by Sinister. It was all in a pact from Sinister, who never trust Sinister. Why do they do
In
it?
the name.
The name.
Like, you know who screwed us over? Who? Doom.
What?
Wow. Really?
You're saying he's a bad guy.
Mr. Sinister. That just mean he kinky.
Oh, but he's kind of a mister. It's respectable.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, unless you're nasty.
Yes, he's the Mr. Sinister.
So, we've got the first class, the first gen called Fodder. They are defenders of the mutant nation state until the fall of Krakoa, which happened some 10 years later. Now, these are built in with a 0.3% outlier, which is a failure rate. There's always these deficiencies in each batch of clones. The second one that's when they're dubbed Chimera, and those have about 2 separate mutant genes, predictable combined power, so like you've got phasing and you've got blasting, maybe, something like that. They've got a 1.2% outlier. Then we've got the third gen, which is possibly the most successful, and those are comprised of up to 5 separate mutant genes. They're believed to be the turning point in the war, but they have a 9.4% outlier. What do you do with that kind of failure rate? Like, these are supposed to be your defenders, but it's steadily growing with each batch. They're going to be defective.
Oh yeah, but their power's off the charts.
Of course.
Functionally an omega level mutant.
So it's how good is the fireworks show for how quickly the fuse burns out.
Well, sure. I mean, start at the beginning. What fodder is?
It's not an endearing term.
It's
Yeah,
another
it's not.
term for pawn.
Exactly.
Sacrificial element, right? And so,
We could lose a couple of those.
but they're also the most simple, right? They've
Yes.
got maybe one power and they're cloned from something else.
Oh, yeah,
Just
absolutely.
Photocopies of photocopies. So, but then you get to Chimera class.
Well, the fourth.
Well, it's Chimera class, by the way. All these guys are Chimeras.
Well, yes, but for the first one were fodder. They weren't called Chimera until Gen 2.
Right.
But then you get to Gen 4. Now, Gen 4, they suffered systemic failure, and they had a corrupted hive mind. They ended up destroying 40% of the remaining mutant population and caused the fall of Krakoa. They were the cause. What would you guess their outlier percentage is? Just on a whim. Don't even look at it. What would you guess?
It was probably upwards 20.
Okay.
35%.
62.3% outlier.
So you're saying there's a chance.
I'm saying if they believe really hard and Jesus is on their side, not in front of them, not behind him, but right next
They're
to him.
flipping tables.
That's right. Yes, right. They're making whips in the marketplace. No, they were the most corrupted, and the assumption is that Sinister had a long-term plan for this.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of that, like, he always does, and the fact that he put in these deficiencies was sort of long game, because they just reminding me of back to X-Men Legacy. After Sinister died again,
Yep.
he somehow genetically implanted his consciousness to take over the bodies of the Juggernaut, Professor X, or Sebastian Shaw, so his consciousness could take over that body so he could live on before he started cloning himself for multiple purposes. So even in death, he's already ready to come back alive.
Exactly.
By some means.
So
Yeah.
another way to look at this outlier rate, and get ready. Y'all ready?
No.
It's mutation. All right? So if you have
It's right there in the fucking book. That's amazing.
Because he gave him extra cheese.
You probably should have seen that coming. Anyway, the point is that at 0.3%, you're having essentially identical copies. So you don't get a mutant, you don't get an improvement, you don't get evolution.
Right.
As you increase, even at 62%, I mean, you're talking about massive, like a all Hail Mary trying to create a mutant.
And an Omega level mutant at that.
I mean, perhaps an Omega times 5 or the
Yeah.
fifth power.
And that's the thing too, like certain abilities probably would clash with others. So if you're just throwing them out, it's going to be a process that has to take place until you find one that's able to handle all those abilities the same way. Like when they brought up the fact of years ago that most powerful mutants like Magneto or Charles, or even like Jean Grey and Scott Have a Kid, or Hyperstorm, which is Rachel Summers and Franklin Richards, like the more powerful the parents are when it comes to mutants, the less mentally stable the offsprings become.
Right.
In a lot of cases with Omega class mutants, because a lot of them have all this power and they're crazy due to something.
Something happens to just flip their crazy switch.
Yeah, the crazy and maybe too much power.
And so
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
And so to go with that, if you have the 0.3% change, that's something you can probably handle. 0.3% chaos
Totally.
in your life, you can probably deal with that. You come out stronger.
I'm running on a 0.70.
That's right. That's right. So you get up in the first, second, third generation. It's stuff you can handle. It's very stable. Well, this is just conjecture, mind you, in a creative environment where nothing is actually real. But suspend belief here. But you can insert anything you want. So Sinister knows he's about to fail.
Absolutely.
So he does the Hail Mary. Because that's a jump from what, like 6% to 62.
About 10% to 62. It's not even like you're multiplying by itself. You're
This is an untested serum. I've got to try it on myself.
right, yeah, and that never backfires. But one of the things that's pointed out is this is part of Sinister's ultimate goal, and he's been playing the long game since the beginning, since probably Charles and Magneto in year 10 of the X-Men announced that, hey, we're our own nation now. We're your gods now.
And do you think he's dead?
Right, yeah. Like, I'm Nathaniel Essex, motherfuckers.
He
I'm
probably
coming back.
low-key is behind the Krakoa seeds in general, too, because if he has genetic samples of every mutant, Krakoa's a mutant, how long do we know if he hasn't been already dabbling with the Krakoa
Absolutely.
DNA? Or even like back when Jason Aaron's was writing Wolverine and the X-Men, they had a baby Krakoa. For all we know, Sinister could have had that in the lab on some Dr. Giroux stuff.
Right,
just
yeah.
Engineering the perfect being.
Exactly, and that's part of what he does. So
And he's not even a mutant.
he's not even a mutant,
not even
but
a mutant.
he's always in their best
Just like
laid plans
Deadpool.
and their worst laid plans. He was publicly executed, it shows in the timeline, by the Man-Machine Alliance. They said, you're done. They found the original, and they put an end to
I
it.
wonder who that was a message to publicly executing senators are like, we don't care.
Right. Well, yeah. So from from there we jump to Nimrod Omega. Now Nimrod Omega is very different than any other Nimrod we've seen before.
Yeah, he reminds me of Ultron from Age of Ultron.
Right, but a little more gleeful.
Yeah,
Well,
like
except right from the jump street, he's the lesser.
that's true too.
Until later in the book, then he's Nimrod the Greater.
Yeah.
This Nimrod is almost human. You can see by the way he emotes. His face, which normally was something of a kill machine, is now more expressive. And he even seems gleeful when Silobel shows some resistance. So Silobel is taken by the hunters who brought her in front of Nimrod and this red-faced, evil-looking woman.
Omega Sentinel. Is her name Kimura?
I don't know. We'll have to get into that.
So is Nimrod a product of the machine revolution?
Well, Nimrod's been a constant for a while now.
This is true.
That comes from the Days of Future Past timeline.
So, this being a different future timeline, this is a different Nimrod.
I'm just trying to figure out, between these two machines here that are sitting here, who's a product of who?
Which came first?
We probably don't know, and at this point, because he refers to those around him as equals of a nature, there's no point in pointing out who created whom.
It just felt like a ruling by committee. Like
of course,
several groups got together, and Nimrod the Lesser, Nimrod the Greater, peace be with you. And I don't know. It felt to me like we're machines against the humans, or we're using the humans now. We're certainly against the mutants.
Right.
Not necessarily like this. Like he was a despot.
Well,
I mean, he is.
at this point, he's working with the man-machine collective, I guess you would call it. And one of the things that makes that really was weird to me was when he looked Silobel in the eyes and he was like, "I'm truly sorry for what we did to you, for us making you, for what we're about to do to you."
Apology?
He seemed genuinely sorry. Like, we created you, and you know what? We shouldn't have.
And he didn't even have to say any of that.
Right. So.
But I wonder if that was like a byproduct of the evolution of the robots and the humans. Like, eventually they just took on not necessarily emotions, but the ability to act.
Sure.
Well, that's a good question.
Emotional.
How come the more advanced the robots get, the more human they are?
I honestly think it's something having to do with the uncanny valley. You start off, saying, "Hey, we're not, the mutants are evil, but we're just like you. We hate them. We're all trying to be the same thing." And when that meshes together, they may look human, but they're far more calculating.
Or another like Ultron comparison is like initially he wants to be more human.
Exactly.
To a degree.
So jumping back into the issue, he says that he's sorry about Silobel. He's sorry they were all a bad idea, the Hounds, because she was from his breeding camps on Mars. But a bad idea should die a bad death. And she's like, I'm never gonna stop. We're never gonna stop. We're gonna take you down. And again, he's clapping his hands. He's got like an emoji face, and he's saying, "Great, fight back." That's the spirit.
That's how we become stronger.
Exactly. It's all about adapting and learning,
Steel
which is
sharpens
crazy.
steel.
Exactly.
At this point, do you think that she thinks she can get out of this?
I think there's a chance until the bath is mentioned.
Yeah.
Now-
She's all gonna hold till the dip.
Exactly. The dip, not the dip. Kelsey, give me a rundown on what the bath is.
The bath is basically, well, to my interpretation, is a liquid type of solution that doesn't break down the physiology of a person, but it allows their consciousness to be coded and to be absorbed in some type of...
It takes the data.
Yeah, it takes the data from her mind, even though it's a black mind, black brain.
I kind of thought it did break down the body at some point.
I think it's supposed to break down the body a little bit.
Yeah, but they break the mind down.
Yes.
Readable data.
Now, Nimrod again apologizes that she's going into the bath. And weirdly enough, he asks her to forgive him. Like, that's not machine.
Yes.
That is human.
Yes.
That's completely human to ask someone to forgive you, even though you know you're putting them to death, in a sense. And the red lady, who I can't think of her name, she says, "Causes seem fatal for your kind, for mutants. They're always rallying behind a cause," and Silobel says, "I'm more than fine to die for a cause, for something I believe in."
Yes.
But it seems like that's all mutants are ever doing, is dying
For the cause.
for the cause.
And normally the cause is just to survive.
So from there, we jump forward again. And or no, we're not jumping forward quite yet. We're staying in year 100, and Rasputin and the priest return to the No Place. Now, Rasputin is pissed with Cardinal because he just sat there and watched.
I don't know why she's mad, because that's what he does.
I was just bred for peace. This is not my doing.
I could have stayed here and chill. Like, you know I was going about to fight.
Why did you bring me with you? I am not good for this.
Oh, they don't give him the
German
German accent in there, but yeah.
Because he's German. German probably doesn't exist.
Word.
At this point. But also, I mean, he seems to be the seed carrier.
Exactly, yeah. He's in charge of getting him to and from places.
And almost
What's
like
his parasite?
the seed carrier, he's peace-loving, bred to be almost religious, like we're talking about.
Yeah, of course.
Doesn't seem like a weird connection to make the seeds, the Krakoa, that's been around for at this point now, 100 years at least, right? Without
The Krakoa seeds that we're currently seeing, yes, not Krakoa itself, which of course has been around since Storm and Colossus joined the team.
Yeah.
it seems almost like a worship of the Krakoa.
Of course,
seed.
it's life-giving. It's a mutant just like them.
Yes.
They even pointed that out in Wolverine and the X-Men when it became the grounds for the Jean Grey Institute. Krakoa is a mutant just like them. Yeah. It's the island that lives, that walks like a man.
Yeah. Natural defenses.
Do you guys ever wonder why non-mutants have to ask Krakoa's permission to travel through the portals?
I think Krakoa has seen in its whole life, because it is a collective consciousness that, is you transplant Krakoa, it's still Krakoa. It's seen the history of humans and X-Men. It's of mutant kind. It's seen that humans will trample over them no matter what, and unless it gives a permission, it'll just be taken.
Does Charles Xavier have to ask permission?
Of course not.
Of course not.
No, he is a telepath, and he can make anyone do whatever he wants.
And he has that portable cerebral. So
Oh no! I think
Charles
the sinister
Xavier
nature of Charles Xavier is something we will see come to fruition.
Yeah.
yes. And another thing too about the Cardinal is also a play on the Cardinals, bishops, and the whole
Absolutely.
religion aspect, and the fact that he's a pacifist. Nightcrawler was a pacifist.
Exactly.
He was a priest as well, and he looks like Nightcrawler.
He looks just like Nightcrawler. So they go back to the No Place, and they're greeted by Wolverine, Zorn, Magneto, and some unknown character that kind of looks like Groot.
I'm assuming it's Black Tom Cassidy. If it's actually Black Tom Cassidy, because he was a tree for a while.
Sure. But one of the things here is Wolverine. When we saw him in House of X1, he was happy, he was laughing. This looks like a Wolverine that's ready to pop those claws and dive him into someone, you know?
If it's even Wolverine himself, because we still don't know.
I would believe that this one is
the
Wolverine.
technical Wolverine. Because if that's an old Wolverine, nowhere that's still Magneto in the green Polaris
Exactly.
outfit. 'Cause if Wolverine's old, they know it's a long
Are you
time.
about to tell me that Magneto couldn't be de-aged
That's
Well,
something I was about to bring up.
That's possible too. That's
or
always.
born?
And with we've seen what we saw in the first House of X with those pods. He was either rebirthing or fixing these mutants, and I think that's what we're seeing here with these ones, because these ones weren't bred.
And I think that if you died away from Krakoa, like away from a seed, away from a cardinal, or whatever it is, then you would be dead.
Of course.
Potentially Krakoa could make you again. Krakoa has genetic material.
Exactly. Sinister is involved.
It's all there. All the pieces are there. They just need to be put together.
No more green Krakoa.
No.
So maybe black Krakoa. I'm sorry about being racist.
No, that's
He
cool.
keeps looking Kelsey right in the eyes as he says these.
Hey, it's factual.
But maybe black Krakoa doesn't have the ability to regenerate. So
Well,
now,
this is supposedly in those tumor places.
yeah.
Off the grid. And maybe the green is just to throw us off to make it things like it's not Eric. Maybe he's wearing the green because Polaris died and it's his
Right.
homage to her.
Or it's Pietro.
Or
Because we ain't seen him move any metal.
Exactly. He's just standing there. He's just there.
and who said he couldn't run in that outfit?
Exactly. So it could. And for all we know, that's Magneto and Zorn again.
Exactly.
Only that's
Exactly.
not done.
Or probably Jean, if anyone.
Jean.
So while they're there, they tell Wolverine that they lost two of them, and Wolverine says that's a shame. They were good soldiers. He's done with them being kids who should be able to enjoy their lives, and he's back to we're soldiers fighting in a war.
Yes.
This is
X-Force.
exactly X-Force, and he tells them to
Sweet.
hand over the data. The old man is waiting. Now I think the old man is Professor X keeping himself. Like, he's getting bitter. He's there, and that'll probably turn into the man we see, the blue one we see later on, the librarian. This is...
Who else could it be?
Toad. We saw him go scuttle off and play with the kids. He might have got lost.
Yeah,
Scott.
Apocalypse.
Scott would be an interesting take.
That's not a bad choice.
Yeah. Or if we're getting really Rosenbergy on this, it would be Havoc.
Or Havoc too.
Yeah, I know. Eye rolls all across the board when it comes to Havoc. He is the surviving Summers.
He's the access for all Havocs. So he's not even dead. He's probably in an alternate universe, which could explain if he popped up in this one.
Exactly, you know.
Anything can happen, but it had to be somebody that Wolverine would follow.
Exactly.
And potentially Magneto would follow.
And Scott might fit that bill perfectly. So we're treated to another page, just letting us know what happened with the mutants in this time. And it stated that there are less than 10,000 mutants around. About 8,000 of them went to a place called Benevolence, and they're on the Shi'ar homeworld. A little under 2,000 are in the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. And they're hoping that those 2,000 can, go and repopulate. They could be the mutants that bring back the mutants. Now, on Asteroid K, which is where we see them go in the No Place, 8 mutants remain. Given that 2 of them just died.
Yes.
There are 10 of them, 8 remain. We've only seen a handful, which means there are a couple surprises around the corner.
Yes. And why are they there?
All
majority of other mutants are in Shi'ar space, why are these 8 still on Earth?
Of course.
Hoping for it.
It's
Is there something about Krakoa that makes Krakoa impossible to kill?
I don't know. Pesticide might do it, which is something we'll get into in a little bit. I have something to talk about with that.
Agent Orange, next Liefeld character.
Yeah,
Right.
So maybe it's like a sport thing. Like, as long as it's a seed out there, it can regrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
So how come this one hasn't been deforested here at Asteroid K?
space tree.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is a space tree.
Yeah.
Space tree.
That makes
Genetically
sense.
engineered.
It's probably magnetism.
Yeah. It's the new Asteroid M. But
Maybe
it's Asteroid
Black
K.
Tom Casting of the group has something to do with that too, and they use their abilities
Just to
grow.
keep it alive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's Krakoa. I'm just going to throw that out.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Krakoa
That's
as an
obvious,
individual.
yeah.
That would be interesting.
Why not? That makes absolute sense.
So we jump forward one more time to the year 1000. This is Ascension. And from here, we start off with Silobel in the bath that she was put in year 100. There's a librarian, a blue-skinned individual with a tiny Nimrod. Just archiving, saying there's not enough soul left to save. It's broken
all
down.
skates.
It's all just... Yeah, it's skates. Exactly. And the data's there. It's a mutant database. But there's no soul. Not enough to copy, not enough to replicate. It's just data. The person is gone. The abilities remain.
Do you think that having a physical body makes it so you can have powers?
No.
That's tough.
I mean, I'm not talking about, Proteus and stuff.
Well,
That you have to factor in Proteus.
I'm just talking about, at this point, this is where I thought that Silobel was more Taggart.
so if you to have powers, you need a body. But if you come like Professor X, his ability is to inhabit other people's with his mind.
Okay.
We're going to get ahead of ourselves.
We're
This will come back.
I was gonna say,
That helmet, just looking at that visor, does look like another X, and maybe that's
little
the
Cerebro.
future Cerebro.
So Nimrod takes the blame, which is again another evolution we see with Nimrod. He's taking the blame for what happened, but the librarian says you just did what you were made to do. You're not to blame here. It's, you created a database of Homo Superior for the war, even though we found out later how pointless that war was.
Good God.
Yeah, all of this death and carnage for nothing.
Oh no, we destroyed the
You're a
Earth.
pudding pop. All right.
I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So they even mention a surprising end of the war. So something crazy is going to happen here in these books. But the librarian points out, we have to remember the past. It's why we keep dinosaur bones around. Because Nimrod points out, good thing we're done with Homo sapiens. He's like, well, we're never really done with them. We keep them here in this preserve. Because we have to be able to look at the past and learn from it and see what we overcame. We have to point a finger at something and say, we can't be that again. And God help us if humanity ever gets domain over this planet again.
Yes, you always need a fresh genetic trait strand too as well.
Sure. And we see some humans running around in this preserve. Now, believing that they won't, get dominion is fine. But as we've learned from the, I believe it was Jeff Goldblum who said, life finds a way. Yes.
So all of these mutants are boiled down to data.
Yes.
Right? And then they're stored in this here database.
Of course.
where they're all just some version of data. Okay, it's important. And it's all in one database, more or less, at least connected.
Of course.
The Internet of Things, the year 1000, right? So Krakoa's not around anymore. Do you think Krakoa got boiled down into a veggie stew?
I think the humans destroyed Krakoa at the first chance they could.
Yeah, some part of that has to be, because that could explain like that environment with, I don't know if that's Adam and Eve, Scott and Jean,
Right.
Steve and Jane in Thor's future.
Is Krakoa in this database?
I would say yes.
I would also agree. Yeah. Krakoa, the data is always going to be there because they still have the seeds. It is Krakoa.
Put a pin in it.
Yeah. So that is where we leave off with the issue. That is the end, is seeing humanity in this preserve and the librarian and Nimrod ruling over it. You know, it's kind of a crazy place to go from there. But one of the topics, one of the main points for this episode is seeing the dream fall to pieces. To see the utopia that was promised come crashing down again. We've seen it time and time again. Just recently, I went in and burped right in front of you guys while I was talking about something. And I went back and I reread the Ultimate Comics X-Men, the stuff right after Ultimatum to the end.
The Utopia stuff?
Mm-hmm. And that was crazy because there were two. There was Tion, and the Mutant Nation, also known as Utopia.
And Jean was running around with one crazy...
And you brought up, can Krakoa be killed? One of the things that the Gene's mutants, they send a pesticide over that kills the sentient land. It just destroys it. And it's slowly dying, and they don't even care that it was a sentient mutant like them. It had mutated from just a normal seed, and they killed it regardless. It's one of those times where they just want better lives, and it doesn't work out. One of the big parallels I picked out was in one of these issues, it's very similar to some stuff we're seeing here, where Ultimate X-Men issue 13, there are people protesting in the streets on behalf of mutants. These are humans. And they're like, they're Americans. They live here. They're alive. Stop doing this. And the people enforcing draw fire on these people who are protesting. You know, they're like, well, you're just as bad as them. If you're, a sympathizer, you're gone. And they're deporting them. They're putting them in these internment camps. It's crazy. The parallels I saw while reading...
8 years ago?
This was about 8 years ago. Yeah, it was craziness to see. And everyone's like, well, if America was doing that,
Again?
Yeah. That's terrifying. And just reading it, I'm like, damn, this is...
If it starts with somebody, it's going to end with somebody. And how long before that end is you?
Eventually, it's all of us. None of us make it out of here alive except for TJ, who is immortal.
This is only the fourth time I've done this.
Yeah. Are you doing a Groundhog Day? and you came with this material?
I know. I'm sad.
So, what are some other utopias you guys have seen that had a really great start and just came crashing down?
Okay, well, none of them are great. They're all generated the reason that they were going to fail.
Okay.
So you can say Genosha was awesome.
If you like slave labor and,
to each their own.
Yeah!
Their skills.
Mutant apartheid!
They gave a mutant the ability to lead the nation. Magneto.
If you take away their free will, they don't care anymore. Daniel, it's a mercy.
Oh yeah, are they better for it?
So the Eloy, up top of Genosha.
Thank you. I was
machine,
yeah.
So the everything's great. I mean, it's a phenomenal utopia.
But at night the Morlocks come.
Okay. But at night the Morlocks come. That's right.
But not the mutant Morlocks, more of the H.G. Wells Morlocks.
Okay, so quite
bring Morlocks.
Yeah, so obviously this post Siege Perilous, Genosha isn't good. But when mutants return to Genosha to have their own country,
yeah,
it's good. But what is inherently the problem with all the utopias is that they're separate.
Yes.
So that is also kind of touched on in the Ultimate X-Men. Jean says there's supposed to be a united mutant nation. Having a mutant utopia in America versus the TN nation, it makes them look unstable.
Whose dream is that?
Exactly. And nobody can figure out...
It's not Xavier's.
No.
Who's going to lead it either. So that's why you have all those fractions. Because, you want us to be united, but at the same time, you want us to play by your rules.
Exactly. Although in Powers we're seeing, and in House we're seeing that there's a different approach where they seem to have come to a compromise where we will be united. And you know what? At some point, it will be by any means necessary.
Yeah. Just like in...
They're the new gods.
Yes, the new gods.
Not
the DC.
You don't get to declare yourself new gods and just like, we're going to cohabitate. I happen to be a god. And
He's telling us from experience when ancient Babylonians started building a tower in his name.
happens all the time.
And gods don't even live with man. They live on Mount Olympus or in Asgard.
Yeah, right? Or,
They're
you know,
separate for a reason.
where was it you live again, TJ? Where is that?
Yeah, monument.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
where-
Do you think that name's by accident? He's there and they built Monument.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, you're bringing up examples already, but each one of them, every time it's separate, then the bad guys are going to come in. We're on the moon.
Or, like in the case of Utopia, it was all quote-unquote good until the schism between Wolverine and Cyclops,
Of course.
and also the Phoenix Force.
Well, and you got to look at the world powers that be in this universe that say, well, they can't even unify themselves. Without realizing that we as humanity don't do that. We draw borders, we separate ourselves all the time, but to point a finger at someone quickly and say, oh, well, you guys can't even get on the same page.
And what happened? You get Namor, one of the most powerful people on the planet, on your side.
You
You
want
get
Nam-
Magneto,
Yep.
one of the
Yeah.
most powerful people on your side.
You want Namor? This is how you get Namor.
And then you
Well,
have
that and you got to have a hot blonde running around with her stretchy
Emma
husband.
Frost. So you get Cyclops.
Said you were going to talk about it.
Yeah. So you get Cyclops, like, revolutionaries the mutants, basically turn them into a paramilitary army because
Of
there's
course.
only less than 200 of them left on Utopia outside of San Francisco. And then you have Norman Osborn tries to come in and tell them what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And Scott says, no. He shuts that down.
So we talked about, we mentioned, or I whispered anyway, something about House of M, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. What about Emma Frost here in the latest Uncanny, who makes everybody forget mutants existed?
But is that a paradise to simply exist in hiding?
It's not going to work
It's not,
because
'cause
somebody's going to
eventually-
fire off their optic blast and go, "How do you do that?"
But they did, remember? Alex
I
even hit his
did.
powers and no one noticed.
Oh, he
So,
must
of
be
course.
an Avenger we don't know about.
Yeah.
Or they just don't recognize
They can't see it. It's a Doctor Who perception filter.
Word.
So now they're all coexisting.
Exactly.
Mutants and humans. No robots anywhere, as far as I can see, as far as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Are you talking about House of X, or Powers of 10, or House of M?
no. So I guess I'm talking about Uncanny X-Men right at the end.
At the very end, I don't know. Guns were drawn on them, and they did do their classic pose, saying, "We're the X-Men. We're here. We're queer. Get with it."
And we don't know if that's still part of the main continuity.
Exactly.
I keep asking this question: when does X-Men?
We don't know, and I think we're intentionally left in the dark on that.
The point,
Yes.
what we do know that there aren't any other X or Avenger or whatever other teams out there trying to whip some ass up on
No.
or these new X-Men or anything, right?
Because they don't do it.
Exactly.
And that's been one thing, too, about House of M. It was working until people realized this ain't right. But then they had some
Right,
heroes
right,
like,
right.
you know, it's not that bad.
Right. Clint's
And
like, I'm alive, but I also want to kill the bitch that did this to me.
Exactly. And it's also like, if mutants were supposed to take over, well, they're taken over. And
Exactly.
we could get used to this, but then it's like, no, that's not the right thing.
So, do you think that it's the leadership that they follow, or is it something they do to themselves? I'm asking in relation to causing the collapse.
Yeah. Being separate right away, I keep saying that.
Yes, that's gonna
being
happen.
separate is going to cause you problems right away. But then, what if you're separate and nobody knows you're separate? So, what, like Age of X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably, Scott and Wolverine had no idea there was an Age of X-Men
And
universe.
they were in that pocket universe, which was a utopia, to a degree.
You're talking about Cyclops and Wolverine.
No, they were in a living
Buddy Cop-
hell.
was it Buddy Cop movie?
They were in Rosenberg's Which X-Men am I going to kill this week? I'm talking about the rest of the X-Men who were in that all mutant.
And so in that case, it's the leader because it took away emotion, which anybody can stay alive, but why you need emotion and relationships and the love I have for you guys.
He touched everyone but me.
You should take that message.
Yes.
But the point
It's all in the
is,
details.
if that's the reason to be alive.
Of course.
There you go. That's the reason for life, right there. Write that down.
Now, personally, I find waiting for season 2 of Love, Death, and Robots is a pretty good reason for me. But
Love is right in the name of that.
oh,
We're still robots.
Death Robots. What else are we talking about?
this is the X-Men right here.
Exactly. Death Love, that's definitely an
So,
Well,
so do you think?
So in that case, their leader.
Okay.
Sowed the seeds of the pocket universe's destruction right there.
Okay.
Because everyone's going to start having emotions, presumably. Otherwise, who cares? They're all going to be automatons.
Right. They weren't meant to love. Apocalypse, in that one, he was the love guru.
Pretty sweet.
Yes.
Which was crazy.
It was neat.
But he didn't want to go back because he knew in the other universe he was a monster.
Word. And that's the thing too, but he has love, it's just misplaced. He loves mutants, like in the Blood of Apocalypse story arc. He's
Yeah.
giving his blood to help rejuvenate the mutant gene or cure mutants from any ailments that you have. But I think it's mostly is the leadership, but it also still falls on the humans at the end of the day. Because if Charles was maybe running Utopia off of San Francisco, I was like, we're gonna live here, but we're here to cultivate the new age of mutants.
Right,
You
right.
know, help them with them being
What
kids and
was that,
educating
Just letting them live.
Yeah, just letting them live.
like Jean Grey's New Atlantis?
Yeah.
Cerebro,
Cerebro.
right?
Cerebro.
Yeah, that's right. Cerebro.
Yes.
Anyway, she had open relations with everybody.
Of course.
Helping humanity. The challenge, though, is humans have a hard time being second.
Yeah.
That's it.
Point blank period. Even to ourselves.
Yeah. So if you're, and well, another thing is, this is just human nature. This is my extensive knowledge of humans. I've looked at them almost all my life. And
Almost. Not talking about the days when he created us, but
or my other lives, for that matter.
On some Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy.
Lucy creates humanity.
All of you.
Not the Lucy you're going for.
Yeah.
But, okay, maybe it works.
I tell you what, you give Lucille Ball one of those pills, you watch the whole entertainment industry just take off. That's Star Trek for years and years and years.
But maybe the mutants need to take a book from Namor's page and just
A page from Namor's book.
like
No, that's how they do it in Atlantis.
like nobody wants to go and invade Atlantis. Maybe they should just live in the ocean. Like
Well, yeah. I mean, and that's all.
nobody's trying to tell Namor to play nice.
Right. I mean, that's all well and good until you realize that they fuck fish. And then it's like, ooh.
Right? You need to bring that up.
No one needs to bring it up, but we all need to
This
think
ain't,
about
it
it.
may be in the deep, but I don't think he's the deep.
You know my uncle married a fish. All right, it's too soon.
Talking about your Aunt
because-
Salmon?
Just because she blows doesn't make her a fish.
I'm gonna use some cold water to apply to that
I'm
part.
just saying.
That's a good work over there. That's good.
So real quick, let's talk about leaders who seemed like a great option at the beginning that went a whole different way. I want to draw a parallel here in that something we talked about earlier to prep you guys. Jonestown. Jonestown started off as it was going to be a paradise for them.
Yes.
It was going to be their own land. It was going to be a family, the temple. And they were going to have their own food. They were going to be their own government. It was free
Self-sufficient.
love, self-sufficient.
In opposition to what?
Oh, the government.
In opposition to oppression
And
to
capitalism.
ownership to capitalism.
Yeah, they were going to be their own people,
Segregationism,
you know, yeah.
yeah.
And Jim Jones, I mean, he did prey on the fears of the minority groups.
Very much so.
He's like, the race war is going to start, and he even started adopting a different tone of talking to that of a black woman, which is crazy.
I heard that too because this is the first time I actually listened to Jim Jones. Because
What a
only
nuts.
Jim Jones I used to listen to is the rapper Dipset all day. But this Jim Jones, he was speaking jive, he was speaking their language, and he was letting them know, like, no, here we have blacks, we have whites, we have Asians, we have gays. You're welcome here. The Bible teaches us to love one another. That's
Oh,
what I'm
yeah.
trying to do here. And he started off feeling persecuted and ostracized just like mutants, so he decided to start his church, but then he also had his ego.
Exactly.
And that's when...
Well, and
Well,
that's
that's not Murray and I. That's when things went awry. But
one of the parallels I'll draw there is in the Ultimate Comics, Jean, when she realizes she's losing control of this
And she's
beautiful
going by
place.
Karen.
She's going by Karen. She's adopting a whole new personality.
shows up to Utopia looking for the manager. Kitty Pryde.
So, she infiltrates, and then when she realizes that it's going to be a war, she puts her people at risk. Much like what we see with Jim Jones, he promised such a better life. He promised goods, and like, hey, we're going to be the thriving one. They're going to be jealous of us. They're going to see our way of life, and they're going to realize they got it all backwards, man. We're the ones over here doing it the right way, and it led to so much death.
Which is also interesting. Like the number I read was 918 people total that died, after dissemination of mutants, there was 198 mutants. So I don't know if that's just a coincidence or they saw the parallel
That,
in the numbers themselves.
it might be, because Jonestown was one of the biggest tragedies of the time. For a long time, that was just, wow, they killed kids. They killed themselves.
The largest, American
They killed
mass
that
murder.
congressman, too.
Yeah.
And the congressman came, and he's like, so what are you guys doing here? And Jim Jones ordered these people to go and kill him, to shoot down his airplane, to just basically start all-out war. Who does that remind you of? In the X-Men or in the I know it was such a weird moment right there where you all gave each other looks like, is that you? Am I supposed to? Are you doing this?
It was me.
But who does that remind? It was more of Mother Teresa. She was a con woman. No, who in the Marvel universe does that remind you of? Charles or Xavier? Or Charles Xavier? Charles or Magneto?
Well, I don't know. Let's see. So we've got a rising problem.
Yes.
We have mutants that are being generated, children of the atom. We don't know how to deal with them yet.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to deal with themselves. They've got certain skills that need to be honed. Let's create a sanctuary for them, perhaps somewhere in Salem. And then we'll have a leader who's bald, distinct, different, can read your mind. Let's train you up, ostensibly to be good students and good humans.
Yeah.
And then send you off on my little crusades. And then kill you in Krakoa.
In Krakoa.
And lie about it.
Oh, and then lie about it.
And then lie about all of it.
Erasing memories.
Right.
Files from them cerebral.
And he has them do these missions all the time.
Man, this is great.
I'm not necessarily here to say Jim Jones is Professor X. Professor X is Jim Jones, but you see the many times that he's asked the X-Men to do these things for him, and they do it. No second guessing.
Or, let's pretend there's a mutant problem.
Okay.
Humans don't like them. So I'll use my powers of magnetism to create an asteroid. And then I'll bring all of my guys up there. We'll call them acolytes.
I'm going to do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, we'll call them acolytes.
And then the acolytes will go down there and start whipping ass on the Earthlings too. Humans, right? Same story.
Same story.
All right, fine. You don't want us here? We're gone. Literally. We're in space.
We're in our own area. Let us be in our own area.
What are you guys doing up there?
Don't worry about it.
You told us to leave. We left.
Boy, does it suck up here. Shut the machines off. They're going to hear Pac-Man.
Go back to where you came from. Yeah, we're in space.
Nobody is home. Just us mannequins.
No, he's not here. No.
So going back, so even Magneto and Professor X have both had their followers do these things that test them. With Jim Jones, he had them drink the Flavor Aid multiple times, and they didn't know. He would sound the alarm. They thought, okay, this is it. This is the end. And he, was like, nope, just kidding. This was an emergency test of our Flavor Aid drinking station. Had it been a real Flavor Aid drinking emergency, you'd be dead. But do you think it would ever get to that point with Xavier or with Magneto that they're so hooked on a goddamn feeling that they lead them into certain destruction, certain death?
Yes, because it's happened numerous times.
What are some examples?
They all have God complexes. So, just off the top, Krakoa, for example.
Didn't lead Charles Xavier into doom.
Yeah, it didn't lead him to doom. Even with the Danger Room and the Astonishing X-Men, he knew the Danger Room was sentient the whole time. He knew that was going to be eventually a problem they had.
Which is a manipulation on that life form.
And it was a sentient life form. It was a human being. It was a computer mutant.
Yeah.
And Charles said, nope, you're going to be a slave to the machine.
And your whole goal is to slowly and increasingly try and kill my students.
Yes.
Oh, Joss Whedon.
Onslaught? Does that count?
I think it does.
Well, no, okay, keep going. Onslaught?
Onslaught, the merger of Magneto's psyche with Professor X.
Mind.
Yep, Mind created a mutant, nigh unstoppable, till Franklin Richards rose up.
Exactly.
Didn't go too well for mutants after that because people blamed them for the death of all the superheroes at the time, mostly because they weren't selling books.
Right.
The only people were selling books was X-Men and Spider-Man, so that's why they were still alive.
But Onslaught didn't create a comic.
But yeah, they ain't
No. Now Charles and Eric, they've both created their own little communes, their own little. Hey, we're away from it. We've seen it echoed in some of the movies, even if they were garbage. We've seen it in the movies.
Sure.
Now, these people, they're so quick to follow them into battle, follow them with this ideology. This ideology that we see in House of X is dangerous.
Yes.
Would we all agree that?
Yes,
it's a dangerous ideology.
They're poking the bear.
And
By giving it
the
snacks,
travel
like
is
if you
all.
want more snacks, here you go, but at the same time.
So I guess the analogy I was trying to draw between all those is that the cult is born from the oppression that they feel now.
Yes.
So, and it takes that shape.
And it will be better later, I swear.
Oh, and
You
so
know.
that's how you rile people up, rile their passions up to go fight and die.
Yeah.
Yes, we ride the tide, then we come to the shore, and everything be gravy once we get there. We just gotta get to the other
We
side.
just got to get there, you know. But it's they're on a dangerous path, and I trust Hickman, but I do believe we're going to see the deadlier side of Charles' dream.
But they are providing the 5 years extra life, the cure for
Yeah.
cancer. What was the third one?
So there was an antibiotic,
Oh,
antibiotic,
the mental diseases,
mental
and
diseases, and 5 years extension of your life.
5 years seems like a weird number, but still, all those three things together would probably placate quite a little bit of human passion.
oh, absolutely.
Exactly. Like we love something for free because I don't think they're charging either, or is that one of the things like
They just
It's recognition of their sovereignty.
exactly
Yeah.
as long as they recognize them as a sovereign state.
And
Then,
amnesty.
yep.
yes. So that's gonna be interesting to see how long before someone's dreams turns into somebody else's nightmare.
Well, and that's the thing, you know, because if enough of these people decide they don't want to recognize them as a sovereign nation, well, then what happens?
I mean, for what reason? Aside from stealing some real estate in a bunch of countries.
I don't know.
Could-
Bigotry, paranoia, the fact that mutants have caused more Omega level of events, you know.
Forever youth, no disease, no cancer.
Oh, yeah, but what if we could take that and re-engineer it ourselves?
That's what I was about to say. What if they figure a way to reverse engineer it? Like now we don't need you guys.
So
Yeah.
it's going to be, thank you for those cures. We need more.
Thank you for the corn.
But
the
here's
crops,
his
the
blanket. Here's a
full of-
blanket for you. Yeah. Oh, that's weird. Did he just cough? Nah, he sneezed.
Or what happens when there's enough of a threat and Krakoa takes it back.
Right. And how long does it take one of these people who's lost their house or their family or something of value to the terrorist mutant Magneto? And he's working with them, and they've got Sabretooth working with them, and all these other villains? No.
And how do we know that these seeds work? Like, how do you know you live in 5 extra years?
A doctor goes, you've got 3 days, and you go, bite me, and you eat the seed.
But I mean,
That's a good one. Bite me. Just seeds bite me. That's marketing.
That's marketing.
right?
I've been trying to get in there. Marvel will not return my calls.
Just bite me.
focus group.
So, yeah.
No, not me.
But this begs the question. Everyone knows who Magneto is, right? In the
Yes.
They have to.
He has to be the mutant Bin Laden, Saddam, Hitler.
Right.
Yeah.
Even
But I
though
mean-
he's
Jim Jones.
Jim Jones.
But why? Is there a history of Magneto?
There's always been a history. I mean, okay.
I'm trying to find
In,
this time.
in
frame.
the timeline that we're used to.
So
what
the
happened?
General 616.
What happened to the purple and pink?
Well,
Magneto?
like we've seen before, when he believes he's in the right, when he believes he is on the Holy Crusade, he's on the right path, we see him don all white, which is... It's almost like the mutant doth protest a little too much. You know, I am good now. It's like saying I'm not crazy or, you know, anything like that. The more you say it.
And a lot of writers do use the white in imagery, just like when Dr. Doom was God Doom in Secret Wars.
Yeah.
It's all white.
That was Hickman as well. We see
Yes.
it in Hickman a lot, where it's a pure form. He has ascended. He has become
The pure light.
the pure light that
prism.
needs to guide us all.
So why would Jean Grey pick that costume?
Because maybe not everyone is in their right mind.
Why would she be a girl when she's a woman? Like I said before, like
She
Susan
was...
Storm dropped the girl decades ago.
Maybe it harkens back to a time when it wasn't so complicated.
True.
It's back when they were saving the world. They were heroes,
Girl power.
you know?
Spice up your life.
Cyclops never wore that costume.
The Miss Marvel one? We don't know that.
No, Cyclops. Like his version was the red and black instead of the blue lines. He
Yeah.
was wearing when he was revolutionary.
So,
his powers were broken.
you know, they were rebirthed, but again, they were rebirthed by the man called X. We don't know what headspace they're in. We don't know what they're, bred to believe.
The man called Charles Xavier.
No, just X. But now he's Charles Xavier. Now he's calling himself that. But this, as we saw before in Astonishing, he's not the same. He hasn't been the same. His pretenses are gone, and he's saying, we're doing this, and you know what? How many times have you questioned me and you were wrong?
Exactly. How
I had to lie to
And
you.
how do we know like this still doesn't have any implications of the Shadow King's effect as well? 'Cause
Exactly.
This could be also a Shadow King long con because he's another one that just sits in the astral plane.
Exactly.
That's
Put a
true.
little darkness into it.
If that's true, I'm disappointed in it.
Hickman probably wouldn't do that. I mean, we don't know. If you're listening to this, Jonathan Hickman, hi.
Because every issue changes the previous issue, so I'm just throwing everything out there.
Phantom X in the world is interesting.
This better not be all in the world. Ugh.
You know what they
They
say.
gave Young Apocalypse the whole Superman origin in the world too. And
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happened like that for him. Evans, I think it was.
Real quick, there's stuff that you will want to know about in House of X #2. Most importantly, Moira McTaggart's whole position in this book is incredible.
Yeah. So, we're not obviously going to go panel by panel on this.
No.
But
Just a quick...
the thrust, the spoiler. So, spoiler alert, pause now. And the spoiler alert.
that was crazy. What kind of spoiler was that?
So Moira McTaggart is essentially immortal. She lives her life. She dies. She goes back in time to the moment of
Her parents boinking.
some sort of awareness in the womb. With all
Hopefully she's not aware of them fucking when she comes in.
that's just embarrassing.
Yeah, she's just shooting through a tunnel. What's happening? It's like Wreck-It Ralph, but the internet one, where they go in.
With her cheeks all
Yeah.
And that's the question too. Like, how long before she dies until she's in the womb does she realize she's back in the womb? Is it deception,
No, it's,
or is it when she's?
It's like those rides at Six Flags that they say they're going to count to 3 before it launches you, but on 2 they just shoot.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm dead.
so
Umbilical cord.
at some
Like,
point in the womb, she wakes up fully aware with all of her memories from the previous life, and then she's born again. Now she is a normal human until about age 13,
Of course.
where she has a terrible fever, whatever, gets sick, gets better the next day, and now she's got this mutant power. Now she doesn't, first time go around, didn't realize she had mutant power, lived a normal life, very fulfilling, it's wonderful. But then she goes back and lives these lives over and over again. So she's had somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 or 11, depends on how we go.
yeah, how we study.
There's 10 seen in her future, 11 if she makes the right choice.
And it's interesting because not all of them involve Charles Xavier.
Sure.
Not all of them are righteous.
Do you think that's where the title Powers of 10 comes from?
I was thinking that too, like 10 timelines I get in. They've been playing with the number, with the 10, 100,000.
Yeah, right,
exponents. So
there's been references to her being Moira X now, which is a little
Right.
weird.
yeah, more 10.
But that's a X or a 10, yeah.
Yeah, or she had a watch.
And so that point is that she's functionally reincarnated,
Mm-hmm.
and there is another important conversation in there that she meets up with Destiny
And Mystique.
of the duo Mystique and Destiny, right? And Destiny says, "I can't exactly."
What about her child?
Destiny's child?
Was she just creeping in the
Beyonce?
background? Yeah, was Beyonce a queen in that
Can
one?
you pay these bills?
So Destiny
Wait,
says,
wait, I'm sorry.
Wait, no, Beyonce wasn't in it.
No, was Blindfold Destiny's daughter, or was that
Ooh,
something
I
they...
said
Whoa. I don't know. That's something we'll have to look into and
or
get
is
into
it like
later.
one of those weird things like, no, Sabretooth is Wolverine's dad but uncle, or is it just one of those things?
They're
that
from
they
the
had-
South, Kelsey. We don't bring that up. I don't know. That's something we'd have to look into. That's definitely something I'll look into this week, and I'll let you know at the beginning of next episode.
And one other point, they did mention, like, if she dies before her mutant power activates before 13, she will not come back to life. So I wonder
Exactly.
if that's going to come into play at some point in time.
Maybe.
Awesome.
Now, what we see is her go through all these lives trying to first cure mutants, and then trying to help mutants, and each time we see their paradise fall. She went to Charles the first time. She went to Magneto the second time. Then she goes to Apocalypse. Eventually, she tries to go out and take out all the Trasks. She becomes an assassin. She's shooting them up. But they've realized that Trask is not the only one who discovered the Sentinels. He's just the first one. That it's a constant in the timelines.
AI is inevitable.
It's going to happen
Exactly.
in some way, shape, or form. And due to humanity being humanity, they don't create robots to hunt and kill mutants no matter who designs it. It's going to happen.
So eventually we see her make her way to the fair. The same fair that we started this episode with, where Charles is having a great time. He's buying some funnel cake. He's stuffing his shorts. Yeah, it's a southern term.
That's one of those things we don't talk about.
So we see her show up, and she says, It's not a dream unless it's real, Charles.
Yeah.
If it's real. And he looks into her mind and he sees all the different lives because she has perfect memory of them. And that's what radicalizes him to create this world. So it's all been a long con, according to this timeline.
Now, I'd like to draw your attention, dear listeners, to the idea that Destiny couldn't see Maureen McTaggart in I don't know, Streams of Fate or whatever it is she looks at. In much the same way that nobody could read the mind of Silabelle, couldn't see her. And then we've got Silabelle, who functionally doesn't die for 1,000 years. Yeah, that's a good look, huh? So I brought that special for you.
Oh, man.
And just real quick, just looking at the timeline and how it's broken down by shades, this is a very hue. The hue is peach, and it reminds me of skin tones going from the beige to the black. Maybe this has something to do with the mind of Cerebelle. Maybe they start off very human, and then you get to here to the black. Where
To the black brain telepath.
brain,
Yeah,
that's what
you know what? I hadn't even caught that. So that's something. Definitely go through and make sure that you read it. Hickman's run right now on these two series are just fantastic. We are running out of time, so we will have TJ back at some point. Probably when we go through and recap this run after it's all caught up.
So you guys don't have to listen to this podcast until October.
We probably won't have TJ back on this podcast and see how ratings do. TJ, thank you for your time. Anything you want to plug?
No, just thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. I love it.
Yeah, of
Pleasure's
course.
all ours.
Also, thank you to Escape Velocity for letting us record in their comic book store. Again, our opinions stated here don't reflect Escape Velocity, the owner, or anything like that. They just they allow us to record here, and we're very thankful for it. So this week at Escape Velocity, we do have the same book of the week that we talked about last time, which is actually 2 books of the week. House of X #1, Powers of 10 #1. If you come in and you sign up for either or both of them, you get the first 2 with your discount and the third one free. So come in, talk to one of the employees, myself included, or, don't and miss out. This week we have a couple things we want to plug.
One thing I do want to plug is the improv. I'm sorry about that. They just came in today before we start recording the unsupervised improv. They're going to be performing August 22nd, 7 to 9 p.m.
At the Carter Payne Theater.
Yes.
Check them out on Facebook. You can do the Google search as well. That's unsupervised improv. And that is on August 22nd. You can purchase tickets online. Again, go on Facebook and search for them. Check them out.
And if you or anyone else you know has any music and are local and you want your songs featured on the podcast, go ahead and shoot us a message on Facebook or email us at escaping.podcast@gmail.com. We'll be happy to have you on, as long as your music's not like Hitler murdered the baby and I was there smiling. Anything different than that, and we'll probably have a good chance of putting you on here.
It's pretty open after that.
Yeah. That's
Sweet Billy Rock.
exactly. One of our local artists who we have a song from that we're going to leave you with today is Ryan Reyes. We will have him next week on the show. We will be discussing DC, the whole universe, the movies, the TV shows, and where they failed us.
Wait, so we doing the negatives?
Oh, you can talk about the positive.
Okay,
you
I was
want.
going to say that's a lot of negatives.
We
I was
need-
ready to talk about Swamp Things or
Dark
Doom
like
Patrol.
midnight around here. It's so much shade.
Really.
So today we leave you with Sciencecells by Trinary. Have a great day, folks, and remember, there can only be one chum bucket.
Yes, sir. And just remember, if you ever feel like you're trapped, try escaping. Thank you.
glass. This is how they fell.